Hi, I'm David Taylor with Twin Falls Estate Planning, and I'm here to explain what a trust is. That's a question I get often is, what's the difference between a will and a trust, or what is a trust? And let me just start by explaining a few things. There's some misconceptions about trust. Some people think that I have to have a lot of money if I'm going to do a trust. As you'll see here, you really don't. It just depends on what you want to protect. Another thing I hear a lot is, it's difficult to administer a trust. It isn't. It just depends on what kind of terms you set forth, because you're the one that's actually writing the trust. So you can make it as simple or as complex as you want it. That's the beauty of trust. So let's talk a little bit about what they are. The definition of a trust is holding property for the benefit of another. We'll see that played out here in a minute, but this dates back to ancient China, where we can find examples of a trust. A perfect example was a few months ago in Halloween. Right? I have two 4-year-olds and they go out trick-or-treating. They get candy. It's their candy, but they come home with their bucket of candy and they say, "Daddy, I'm going to eat this all." And I say, "No, you're not. Give me the bucket and I'm going to give you, one piece a day or something like that until it runs out." I mean, that's effectively a trust. It's my kids' candy. They, quote-unquote, earned it, but I'm holding the candy for their benefit. I'm not the one who eats the candy. But they are the ones who are ultimately going to be the beneficiary of the candy, and I hand it to them based upon my terms. That's basically how a trust works, is you're holding the property, which is not really for you. That's called self-dealing when I eat the candy, but you're holding it for someone else's benefit. So here's how it works. When you create a trust, what you're doing is you're creating an agreement. That agreement can be between you, it can be between you and a spouse, it could be between you and children, whoever it is. But there's some form of an agreement going on. It sounds kind of weird. I can make an agreement with myself, but I'm sure you do it all the time. Hey, New Year's coming. I'm going to lose weight. Yeah, that's an agreement with yourself, right? It's not abnormal. The second thing you do is within your trust document, you create the terms. You can be as liberal or as conservative as you want as far as the terms. You can still use the trust property for how you want. You could go burn your house down and no one's going to care. Whatever it is, but your terms basically set out these three players. There's a grantor, that's the person who created the trust, probably you. There's the trustee, that's the person who is right here. That's the person who holds the property for the benefit of another during your life. That's probably also you. And the third key player is the beneficiary. Same thing during your life, that's probably you. You're saying, I created the trust and I'm the beneficiary of the trust. And when you pass away, then the terms will change, and it says, now here's who's going to be the trustee, and here's who's going to be the beneficiary. That's basically how it works when you come in and you design your trust. But the most important part about doing a trust is funding a trust. So when you create a trust, what it physically is a document. I mean, it's a pretty fat binder that you get at the end when all is said and done, but it's just a bunch of paperwork. And that on its own isn't effective. You have to do this process called funding. That's not too hard to do, but there's a few ways you can do it. Is the first one is you can make a declaration. So in your trust you can say, this now belongs to my trust. I once had a client who had a shoebox full of money and he says, I want that to be my trust. That's part of your trust. Not a good idea, but part of your trust. The second thing you can do is you can retitle your assets. You change the name of your assets to the trust. The third thing that you can do is you can probate assets into your trust. So when you pass away, if you haven't done this completely, then you can do it at that time. So all sorts of ways that you can fund a trust. You can also, the fourth one is you can physically put something in the trust. So you put a $10 bill in that binder, that's governed by the trust terms. But that's something I help you out with. And then the last part is administration. The beauty of administration is you don't necessarily need to hire an attorney to help you administer the trust for the rest of your life. You set it up so that you can administer it. Now, obviously, I mean, you can hire an attorney to administer it, but like I said, you don't need to. So why do a trust? What's the benefits? There's all sorts of different trusts, so it's a little hard to answer that. You could, for example, go to your bank right now and say, I want to set up a trust fund. I want to take care of my grandkids with this money. But for estate planning, there's two primary benefits to establishing a trust. One is we can avoid probate. So you might have heard that nasty word, or maybe you saw one of my earlier videos on what probate is and all the horror stories, and you can avoid that completely and say, you know what, I don't really care about what happens with my stuff, but I care about what happens with my children or my beneficiaries. I don't want them to go through that process, so I'm going to avoid probate. The second thing you can do is you can protect your assets. So there are ways that we can structure a trust so that it provides you some protections. Most of those protections are from creditors and predators. Perhaps you need some protections from taxes. Perhaps you need some protections from these people, the beneficiaries. Are you worried that they're going to call after you and say, I want my money now, or something like that? So you can protect yourself from all these things. All right, so if that sounds like something that you want to do or something you want to look at, come in and see me. The initial consultation is free. Let's talk and let's see if this is a good option for you.